Hey guys, and welcome to the Whitwam Organics Weekly Nursery and Garden Report. My name is David Whitwam, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me. So, this time of year is kind of another one of those transition periods. We've talked about a few of them where you could potentially have like nothing going on or a whole lot of stuff going on, depending on how you want to work it. So, that kind of brings me into what we're going to talk about today, which is planting your garden in succession. So I'm going to kind of talk about the different methods and the definitions of those and how that's beneficial, and then kind of talk about where that puts us right now as far as what you should be doing in your garden. But before we get into that, I want to do our nursery and garden report. I have some harvest that I want to show you guys. I have some stuff from the nursery I want to show you guys. I don't know if you're new to the channel, new to me, but on my website, whitwamorganics.com, we have a great list of stuff that does really well right now in Central Florida in this heat, called the Heat Loving Greens and Things list. And I know there's some things on that list that some of you might be a little skeptical on whether or not they can actually be grown right now. So here I am sweating in Tampa, in Seminole Heights, Tampa, Florida. And what I'm about to show you was harvested at one of my gardens, not even 3 miles away from here. And then I'm going to show you some stuff from our nursery that I just pulled off the tables right back there. Okay. So there's no tricks. The stuff's not being grown indoors. Some of the stuff from the nursery, I'm going to show you if it's being grown in shade or a more shady location. I'll definitely tell you that. So I guess we'll do the nursery report first, and I'll show you one of the things off our Heat Loving Greens and Things list that is being grown in the nursery right now. So first up is a lettuce. So Manoa lettuce. This is it right here, guys. So this is one of the trays of Manoa lettuce. And it's doing quite well. We have many, many more. So it just we are growing it in a little more shade right now. So it is coming in a little more on the leggy side. So this is definitely needs to be grown in a more shady location. But I'm telling you right now, it's not bitter at all. Not even a little bit. It's absolutely phenomenal. This is a heat tolerant lettuce that was developed in Hawaii. Even though it snows in Hawaii. Did y'all know that? I didn't know that before I knew that. It snows in Hawaii. Wrap your head around that one. Next, from the nursery, this is our Jericho romaine. So some of y'all might actually be a little more familiar with this one. Again, it's coming in leggy because we are growing it in shade, but if you're looking for lettuce, this is a good one to grow. We do sell them as plants. That's not bitter even a little bit. We do sell them as plants, but really I would recommend you get the seeds right now, because really the trick is you're not going to let this grow into a full big romaine head. You're actually going to harvest it like baby greens like this. Because it will still bolt, and if it does bolt, it can get mildly bitter, but nothing compared to other lettuces. The Jericho romaine can be a little tricky to germinate in the heat. So we have been putting the seed trays with the Jericho romaine in our office, where we have the AC set to about 74 degrees, because that's also where we store our seeds. The Manoa lettuce is like gangbusters. It can all be germinated outside. No problem. The available seedlings list of what we have in the nursery is not very big right now. Again, we're kind of in a transition. I stopped planting some of the summer stuff. We're kind of going to just go through our stock of what we got. The hardcore summer stuff, and we'll get into kind of the difference between the hardcore summer stuff and the stuff that tolerates the summer off the Heat Loving Greens and Things list. But without getting too far into our topic, I've got a whole nother planting seasons in front of me, and I need to, we're a pretty small nursery, so I really don't have the space. So we do have a lot of Florida native flowers out there. We're kicking butt on the herbs. And then just stuff off the heat loving greens and things list. I think there's about 2 pages of plants on the website. But, you know, this is a great time of year to start stuff by seed. So if you're not comfortable with growing stuff by seed, I recommend at least giving it a shot. A lot of people say, I don't have luck. We can get into that. Maybe that'll be my next episode is I'm going to talk about planting stuff by seed. Because that's kind of perfect for where we're at right now. But let me tell you what we've been doing in the garden. So this, I stuck it in some water because it was getting really sad. But I'm going to bring it forward. So this is our Paracicaba broccoli that is on our heat loving greens and things list. It is a sprouting broccoli, so we're getting a bunch of these little broccoli sprigs on the plants right now, but you know, I'm just want to show you guys these things. This stuff can be grown over the summer. So we're getting broccoli. It's a Paracicaba broccoli. It's from Paracicaba, Brazil. Again, developed for extreme heat tolerance. So this one actually can be grown year round because it's also very cold tolerant, just like you can grow it during regular broccoli season as well. And then this, again, these were just harvested this morning. So this is our Soyo Nishiki cucumber. There is the general word for this variety. So this is a sub variety, are called Soyo longs. But this one is Soyo Nishiki. I actually like it because of its extreme disease resistance. I also had some summer dance cucumbers that I harvested this morning, but I already ate them. And then let's see, where can I put this? Let's put this right there. Okay. Next on the list, I split this with someone who was helping me today, so I put it in a bag. My favorite are icebox watermelons. Let's see. We still have some on the plant. I'm actually going to be planting more seeds in my gardens now. This is one that I kind of start growing in February. I start putting seeds out if I can get the seeds to germinate. They do like it hot. And I'll actually grow this all the way till the days get too short in December. So almost Christmas. A lot of times I can be eating watermelon from my garden during Christmas time. So I really didn't have too many problems with these splitting. The other one I'm going to show you, we have had a little bit of problems with them splitting, but that can be a concern. This does have a very thin skin and thin rind, and I think it makes it more flexible because even with all the rain we've been getting, and then it's been dry, and then it's rained a bunch again, these still weren't exploding. But some of our bigger watermelons, what happened? I don't know if y'all can still see me, but something happened with the camera. I'm going to try and reboot here. Hey, sorry about that. I hope, yeah, looks like I'm back up. Okay, just a little connectivity issue. But this is our icebox watermelon. We're still growing it right now, and we'll be growing this until they can't grow anymore. So these take about, I'd say 30 to 60 days to start setting fruit, and they're about 30 to 45 days after they set fruit. So that's a very fast watermelon. It's about how big they get. They can get a little bigger. I've harvested them a little smaller. I mean, I think the biggest one I got this year was about like yay big. Super sweet, delicious watermelon. Don't mind if I do. Again, harvested this morning, and I'm planting more in my gardens right now. And then next, I decided to be a little brave, y'all. This is the smallest one I've gotten so far, but this is our Hakachu cantaloupe. It's actually a smooth skin cantaloupe. I harvested it this morning. It will probably ripen more on the counter, but I wanted to show it to you guys. I get them about twice this size, all the way down to about this size. But you're really not looking for size. Basically, here's the flower spot, and here's where it was connected to the vine. I just lightly pick them up just a couple inches and bend down and smell them. And if they have a really sweet smell, I know it's time to harvest them. And or if I go to pick them up and the vine just snaps off, so I don't pull on or anything, but if the vine snaps off, then they're ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this one. And hopefully I was right and it's ready. Oh, yeah. Look at that, guys. So this is the Hakachu cantaloupe. And this one also can be grown all the way till it gets too cool. So pretty much from March, February, March, I'm doing my first planting of it. And then around December, I'm pulling my plants out. So I kind of do the last planting of these maybe 90 days prior to December for one last harvest for the holiday season. Hakachu cantaloupe. So we have the Hakachu cantaloupe, the Ichiba, honeydew, the Ginkaku Korean melon. I wish I had one of those to show you guys. It's also delicious and super easy to grow. We have the Icebox mini watermelon, and then we also have the Jubilee and the Florida Giant watermelon. So the two giant watermelons, the Jubilee and the Florida Giant. It's time to get another round of those going right now as well. I might snack while I'm talking to you guys because this just looks too good. Might just have a little bite, just a little bite, just a little bit. So yeah, that's, if there's any people who were doubting the heat loving greens and things list and some of the things off that list. That is delicious. There's flies everywhere. Let me put this in my bag real quick and we'll keep going. All right. Hakachu melon. Definitely think that would be a little sweeter if I would have left it on the counter for a few more days. Usually I give my melons maybe 2 to 4 days on the counter after I pick them. And they really, really sweeten up. As soon as my whole kitchen starts smelling like melons, then I know they're ready. All right, let me get that out of the way. And so that's it for the nursery and garden report. I guess I can tell you, you know, in some of my schools, that we're hopefully going to be up and going again here. I have been going and doing a midsummer clean out, pulling weeds, making sure that the garden bed covers are still covered. Just trying to, you know, get a head start and make sure that these gardens are up to par for when the kids get back and we're ready to jump in and start gardening. You know, other than that, we're going to be starting to harvest okra soon. Long beans are coming in. Cowpeas are coming in. You know, the melons, the cucumbers, Malabar spinach is always going as far as the entirety of the summer. So that pretty much wraps up our nursery and garden report. So let's get into talking about succession planting. Hey, Jasmine, will melon plants take over the yard? Can they produce in a large enough pot? Yeah, they can produce in a big pot. They definitely need room to climb and grow. I had about 6 plants take over a 4-foot by 16-foot bed with a trellis, but we got 2 boxes, crates of melons off of those plants. These were kind of the last of the melons off of those plants. Here I'm like sweating outside drinking coffee. When I was a kid and I saw adults doing this, I vowed I would never be that guy. Here I am. Jasmine also asked, did you discuss what to start planting yet? Nope, we're about to get into that. So let's see here. So we're going to talk about succession planting, kind of what's going on, where we're at right now. So succession planting covers a few different methods that basically, or approaches that basically use your time and space as efficiently as possible. Okay, so that's kind of the guys, give me a second. I got a tarp right here to keep the sun off me. I'm gonna move it really quick and then we'll keep going. Y'all know me, there's always something I gotta stop and do. That's a little better. Okay, so I'm only going to be going into one of these methods in depth today, but each one of these methods can be its own episode. So the first one is 2 or more crops planted in succession. So basically what that means is right after you harvest one crop, you plant another one. So for example, right now you're harvesting out your Malabar spinach, which was a summer crop, and you're following that up immediately with fall. So you pull out a summer crop and you follow it right up with a fall crop, or in reversal, you have spring crops in, and it starts getting a little too hot, and you immediately follow up with a summer crop. So in the same spot, if it was a pot, in the same pot, you're literally removing one plant and replacing it with another of something for the next season. Okay, so that's method number one. I really don't have names for these methods. So method number 2 is the same crop in successive plantings. Now this one is one that most of y'all are probably familiar with, but I know not everybody is really good at. And that would be like planting some carrots, so like things that aren't a cut and come again. So things that you are going to harvest once and then the plants are dead. So head lettuce, bok choy, unless you're picking at the leaves, carrots, beets, cabbage, stuff like that. So basically, you want to stagger plant. So you want to plant some and then wait a couple weeks and then plant some more and wait another couple weeks and plant some more. And what that's going to do, it's going to give you a prolonged harvest during the entirety of the potential season of that crop, right? So if carrots are ready in 60 to 90 days and we can grow carrots from, I don't know, plant the seeds in August, September, October-ish, and do your last planting of carrot seeds in February, March, or April, depending on how brave you are. That's your potential time frame for growing carrots. And you say just filled up your bed with, or your area for carrots. If you put in all those seeds at once, you're gonna have way too many carrots all at once. And then once that's done and you pull out all your carrots, if you replace them with carrots, then you're gonna have to wait another 60 to 90 days to get more carrots, and you're gonna have way too many carrots again. So you go through these gaps of having nothing and too much stuff, and having nothing and too much stuff. So by planting, if you had, say, a space where you were going to do 4 long rows and you planted a half a row at a time every 2 weeks, by the time you got done planting, it would be 16 weeks later, and you're going to have some carrots for a longer period of time. So that's method number 2 that we consider succession planting. Method number 3 is planting the same crop with different varieties that have differing maturing dates. So, for example, you decide that you want to do determinate tomatoes, Those are more short, bushy tomatoes that are ready all at once, and do some indeterminate tomatoes. And of your determinate tomatoes, you pick some that are ready in 65 to 70 days. You pick some that are ready in 85 to 90 days. And then you have some nice big beefsteak slicing tomatoes that are indeterminate that will start being ready at 80 days, but will give you a slow, continuous harvest, through a season. So picking different varieties of the same thing that have differing times that they're ready, and then you can plant it all at once. There's radishes that are out there that are 20-day, there's 40-day radishes, there's 50-day radishes, there's 90-day radishes. There's differing times on beets. So, that's kind of using variety types to get a successive harvest, whereas the one I talked about before was forcing a successive harvest by staggering your planting times. The next one, I don't really know if I consider this succession planting, but it is in lots of different sources and literature. So we're going to talk about is companion planting or intercropping. So that is not, monocropping. I think a lot of y'all probably do a lot of this stuff. You just didn't know what it was called, but that would be planting based on the size of the plants, the nutrient needs of the plants, the shade and the space. So like if you're creating shade using okra plants to get your kale in a little bit early, that's a form of companion or interplanting. That's succession planting. Or planting stuff right next to each other because of size difference and needs. So like there's the Three Sisters planting of squash, corn, and beans because those plants really don't compete with each other nutrient wise, and the beans can climb up the corn, and the squash sprawls around the ground and kind of works as a living mulch. And then when they harvest, when you harvest those foods, it makes a nice complete nutrient dense meal. So that's another form of succession planting, is companion planting or interplanting. The one we're going to cover today is, season staggering. So planting, it's kind of like was it the first one? Yeah, it's kind of like the first one and the second one combined. So the first one was planting 2 or more crops in succession. So taking a plant out and replacing it with a different kind of plant. And then the same crop in successive plantings, that's doing successive plantings or staggered plantings of the same thing. And then your companion planting. This one kind of mushes them all together. And same crop, different maturity dates, right? So this would be different crops with different maturity rates, staggered planting of different crops, okay, while taking into account your companion planting. So that's method number 5, is doing staggered plantings of different crops. And right now is a great time of year to do that. So let me tell you guys where we're at as far as planting stuff. And by the way, it is not too early or too late to get a garden planted. And in the description of this video, I said, if you're asking that kind of question, then you got a long way to go. Because here in Florida, there isn't like a day that is best, or even a window that's best to go plant your garden, right? There's windows to plant certain crops, right? There's time windows to plant X or Y or Z, but there's no time to go plant your garden. If you put a knife to my throat and made me pick, the best time to plant your garden, I would probably, after getting cut a little bit, finally bend and say October, November. But, the reason why I'm digging my heels in on that is basically you're going to be way too late for some things. You're going to be way too early for other things. There's very, very few things you're going to be like just right for if you go out there to plant your garden during a certain window. Okay. So if I was to say, like, when do you plant your fall garden? Meaning, if you looked at the calendar on what are the dates of fall, when do you plant the things that would be growing between the end of September and the end of December? The answer is between right now and mid-November, and you don't stop. It's a successive planting the entire time. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So really, when do you plant your fall garden? Now. Okay, like you start it now and you keep going. You don't stop. Okay, so right now, if you want anything that's considered a summer crop that loves the summer, if you want that, if you want to be eating that stuff during the fall, so after September, when is the first day of fall this year? September 20th, 21st. It moves around a little, but if on September 22nd or October 1st, you want to be eating okra, that's in the fall, but it's a summer crop. You need to get it going now, like right now. So I don't know, by people's messed up definitions, would that be starting your fall garden? Because we're planting what I would consider a summer crop with the intention of harvesting it during the fall. You see how these definitions get a little crazy? So, if you were to be planting summer stuff that you want in your fall garden, because they don't like the cool weather, they don't like the shorter days, you got to get it going now if you don't have it going already. Okay? So the stuff that's like deep summer stuff, if you got a hunkering for Malabar spinach and you want that in your fall garden and you don't have it yet, right now is a very good time to get it going. It's not too late. Also, there's things on my heat-loving greens and things list and other crops that are extremely tolerant of the summer, and now it's time to get those going again as well. So that would be, I showed you some today, the Soyo Nishiki cucumbers, the melons, the Paracicaba broccoli. Those are all things that are extremely tolerant of the summer. And if you get them started now, they're going to be super happy as soon as like the weather gets a little bit nicer in September. Okay. And then that stuff's going to be providing for you. So what are you planning right now this second? Summer stuff and other summer stuff. So the summer stuff that loves the summer. And by the way, the summer stuff, especially the long season summer stuff, sweet potatoes, jicama, peanuts. If you get any of that stuff going right now, and you want to have other things growing in your garden when the weather changes and gets nicer, it's going to be in the way. So at this point, if you want those longer season summer crops that love the summer, you need a dedicated space for them, or it's going to bump into you getting your fall stuff or your winter stuff planted. Notice how I said fall stuff and winter stuff. I did not say your fall garden and your winter garden. Okay. So let me just be clear on that. Okay. So if you don't want your summer stuff bumping into your fall stuff and your winter stuff, you better get it going in a different location. Okay. In other words, don't put your sweet potatoes right now where you're going to need to put your zucchini or even your collard greens. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to miss something. Okay. Because they need 3, 4, 5 months to really produce. But the faster summer stuff that loves summer, like long beans, Malabar spinach, okra, you can get another round of those going now if you haven't already, or if you want another one. If you do have okra growing somewhere and you planted it way back in the spring and you really want okra, say for Thanksgiving, I really recommend you planting more okra in a different location. Otherwise, the nematodes are probably going to get the okra before you get, like, you'll be pulling them out in another 6 weeks. They're going to decline. They're going to hit a brick wall. It's just you left the plant in the same spot for way too long. So if you want okra from spring through the summer and into fall, I recommend at least 2 plantings: a spring planting and a spring planting for a summer harvest, and a midsummer planting for a fall harvest. And that's going to keep the nematodes up. It takes time for those populations to build up. And if you can get them before the populations really, really explode and build up and cut those plants off at the ground, you're actually going to encourage the predators of the nematodes, and you're going to build up their populations rather than building up the nematode populations. So we don't want to feed the nematodes, guys. So we don't want sick plants that have been in for way too long. So right around the corner from here. So basically we're planting summer stuff that loves the summer, and we're also planting summer stuff that tolerates the summer. That stuff will go a little bit further into fall, maybe even right at the beginning of winter time. And those are all off of our heat-loving greens and things list. If you're looking at my heat-loving greens and things list and you're having trouble figuring out which things love the summer and which things tolerate the summer, please just reach out to me and I will tell you which is which. Okay? So the next thing that we're planting, so that's like right now. Right now you can be planting summer stuff that loves summer, summer stuff that tolerates the summer, and almost right now you can be planting the stuff that loves the fall only. That's the long season stuff. So that's tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, anything over like 80 days that needs that perfect weather that we get in the fall. And then again in the springtime, it's about time to get that stuff planted. Now, is it a little bit early? Yeah, by a couple weeks. But you know what? If it kind of cools off at least a little bit by the end of September, which it does sometimes, or mid-October, you're going to be right on time, okay? Every few years, it doesn't cool off till the 1st of November, and that stuff's going to be really struggling. And the people who always wait a little bit and don't plant this stuff until August are going to be going, I told you so. But that's almost as rare as it cooling off in September. So if you want to split the difference and look at mid-October as being our average, you know, weather gets decent, you know, where like, I mean, I'm sweating right now, and this is how it is when I walk outside in the morning. So I'm not talking about not sweating like this in the afternoon. What I mean is, like, you walk outside and instead of it being 78, 80 degrees for morning temperatures, it's 74 or 73 or 72 and 20 to 30% less humidity in the air. That's going to make a huge difference. And if we hit that weather the last week of September, you're going to be a couple weeks ahead of the game for your tomatoes and stuff. Okay. So right after that, so that would be summer stuff, heat tolerant summer stuff, loves the summer stuff, is planted right now through July. And then into July, August, you're planting your long season fall crops. Okay. The stuff that needs it nice. And then almost right around the corner from that, into August to September, we're planting our short season fall stuff. Okay. So that's cucumbers, other cucumbers other than this. Cucumbers, squash, zucchini, beans. So things that take 40, 45, 60, 65 days. And then right at, almost at the same time, or wait just a little bit, maybe a week, 2 weeks, we're planting our, so this is where we at with what I was saying. So right now we're at the end of August, middle of September, and I'll go back through this again. We're planting our heat tolerant or warm tolerant winter stuff. So collard greens, carrots, kale. Okay. And that we're planting with the anticipation of that cooler weather that usually hits into October to mid-November. So we know that weather's coming. As am I cutting out for everybody, or Lee said I'm cutting in and out? Am I cutting out for everybody? Cutting in and out? See if I can do a mic check. Okay. Thank you, Pickles. Okay, thank you, Jasmine. Lee, it looks like it's just you. So end of August, beginning of September, we're starting to plant our heat tolerant, warm tolerant winter greens, winter crops, root crops that are heat tolerant or winter heat tolerant. Okay. And that stuff is planted at the end of August, maybe up to mid-September at the earliest. You can plant this stuff later, okay? And then almost immediately after that, so that's September, October, maybe the end of October to November, we're starting to plant our cool weather winter stuff. So all the lettuces, spinach, bok choy, peas might go in a little bit earlier. They're not really like a really heat tolerant winter crop, and they're not one that really loves the cold. So they're kind of a weird one that falls in between those two. They're in their own category. So that's basically planting stuff every week to maybe 2.5, 3 weeks between now and mid-November. So let me run through that with you one more time. So right now we're planting our last crop of stuff that loves the summer. Okay. In another week or two, if you want to wait, or you can do it simultaneously, we're planting the crops that can be grown over the summer, but more like just tolerate it. When we hit that peak of June 21st, longest, hottest day of the year, they're not like too happy. I'll be honest with you. I'm getting cucumbers right now, but these plants aren't too happy. But you know what, guys? The days are getting shorter, and they really do respond to that. Okay. So the right now it's summer stuff that loves the summer. Another week or two, it's summer stuff. So that puts us in first week of August. It's summer stuff that tolerates the summer. Between right now or last week of July, which we're pretty much at right now, and first or second week of August, you're planting your long season fall crops. So that take, 80, 75, maybe 85, 90 days and more. So that is some of your melons, your pumpkins, winter squash, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, anything that takes a long time, that loves that nice weather we're going to get in the fall. And then also, and then you're going to wait about another week to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So that puts us in mid-September-ish. You're going to be planting your short season fall crops. So that's the stuff that takes 40 days, 50 days, 60 days. Okay. The fall crops that take 40, your spring fall crops that take 40 to 60 days, maybe 70 days. Okay. That's the stuff you're going to be planting in mid-September. Right around from that, into September to October, you're going to be planting your heat-tolerant winter stuff. Now, understand, I categorize for winter stuff. That's anything that can take a frost. Okay? And so your winter stuff I have in 2 categories. Heat-tolerant and needs it cold. Okay? So that would be your kale, collards, broccoli, carrots. All that stuff is, for the winter, fairly heat-tolerant. Okay? And then almost right after that, end of October to mid-November, you're going to be doing your first plantings of your cool weather winter stuff. So that's bok choy, lettuce, spinach, all that more of the stuff with the thinner leaves. So that's got us covered between now and mid-November of doing back-to-back plantings based on seasonality and what we're coming into. Okay. So just to jump right through those categories that I'm talking about, there's 3 of them. And each category has two subcategories. So category 1 that we covered is summer. And the 2 subcategories for summer are loves the summer and tolerant of the summer. Okay. The next category is your spring fall crops. I have those two different seasons in one category because it's the same list of crops. What you can grow in the fall that likes that perfect weather. We get that weather a second time in the fall and in the spring. We get it twice a year. Okay. And we tend to have enough weeks of that weather 2 times a year where you can do the same crops 2 times. Okay. So that is for the spring fall stuff, the 2 subcategories are long season, the stuff that takes over 80 days, and short season, the stuff that takes under 80 days, usually 70 days and below. The stuff that's between 70 and 80 days is kind of iffy and falls in between the two. And then you have your winter stuff, and that is everything that can take a frost. And its 2 categories are warm tolerant, winter heat tolerant, and needs it cold. Okay, so between all 6, so that's 6 categories, you could be super busy between now and mid-November. So you can see whereas if you just planned on putting your whole garden in October, you're gonna be missing out on a bunch of stuff. Maybe you don't care about that stuff. Maybe you don't care about summer stuff. Maybe you're going to buy all of your tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. You're just going to buy starts. That's fine too. If you don't want to deal with any summer stuff because you don't like it, you don't want to eat it, and you're going to you're going to buy winter squash starts and tomato starts and pepper starts and eggplant starts. Sure, you could put your garden in October and put those starts in, and you can put your seeds in of the short season stuff. Short season fall stuff all at the same time. So Stephanie says, so when you talk about short season fall winter in mid-September, is that transplanting or starting seeds? I'm talking about starting seeds. All I've been talking about today is starting seeds. That's all I've been talking about today is starting seeds. Once you get into starting buying transplants, that's for if you screw this up. Okay. That also, if you get this kind of down pat, and y'all could go back and watch this video and take notes, draw it out however you want. If you guys can get this down pat, and as you get introduced to a new crop, you might not nail it on the first try. Oh, well, that didn't work out then. Well, let me try it in. Well, let me try it here. And you see when it like matures, you talk to other gardens, see what gardeners see when it's the most happy. And how long does it take to produce? And you kind of figure out which one of those baskets it goes in, and that will tell you that will tell you when you're supposed to plant it. It will also tell you if you miss that window, if you need to buy starts to put it in. Okay, so pretty much when we're hitting the next window of planting stuff by seed, if you missed that window and you're putting these seeds in and you want this other stuff from back here, I know my camera's flipped. Okay, so if you're putting stuff in here and you want stuff from way back here, time-wise to go in, you probably need to buy starts of this one. So in other words, if you want to wait and only screw with your garden at the end of August, mid-September, and you want okra for the fall, you're going to be buying plants. Okay, if you want to wait until the end of October, November to do your garden, and that's when you're going to plant your collards and your carrots and your kale, you probably should consider buying very large tomato, eggplant, pepper starts, like gallon or bigger, and then at least buying starts of the short season fall stuff that you missed that window on as well. So a lot of people, James says, I'm always late. I have 13 square foot garden beds. I really want to be more successful growing food this year. James, you're not the only one. A lot of people are late because they wait. And the funny thing is they're not late on everything. Like if you jumped in there any day or week of the year and started your garden and planted everything, you're going to get some stuff right. It's just chances are something's going to do. Like when I talk to people and they're like, all I can ever grow is cherry tomatoes and hot peppers. I'm like, oh, you're one of those people who thinks you're supposed to start your garden in the spring. And so you plant everything in the spring. Cherry tomatoes and hot peppers are in the late spring. Kind of I don't have all the cherry tomatoes in the heat loving greens and things list. I'm still on the fence of whether or not to put them on there. I mean, they do go so long into the summer, and then we start them. It's like I'm pulling my last tomato plants out of cherry tomatoes, Roma tomatoes. I'm pulling my last plants out the end of June, maybe July 4th, somewhere around there. I'm ripping my plants out, and I'm putting seeds in for the fall season at the end of July. So there's only like a 2 or 3 week gap there that I'm not dealing with cherry tomatoes throughout the whole year. So I've considered putting them on the summer list. But either way, if someone tells me the only thing they can grow is cherry tomatoes and hot peppers, I know good and well that they're starting their garden in March. I know that. I know that for a fact. I know they're from up north, and they're starting their garden in March because that's when they start gardens. So that's should give you some sort of an idea about how important it is to figure out what plants go in what window. And when you're supposed to plant them. Hey, Penelope, again, can you repeat the seeds that you're planting now for fall? So right now, we are working on our last planting of our summer crops. The stuff that tolerates the summer and the stuff that loves the summer. We are planting the last plantings of our summer crops. This is all by seed. I'm only talking in seed. I'm not gonna cloudy up the water by talking about planting starts just yet. So right now we're planting our last planting of summer stuff. Malabar spinach, okra, long beans, Egyptian spinach. If you really, really want any of that stuff and you don't have it growing now, true roselle. If you really want any of that stuff growing for a fall harvest, you better get some more of it planted right now. If you're going to plant any like super long season summer stuff, jicama, peanuts, sweet potatoes, which of those three I only have jicama. You better put that stuff in a different location where you're not going to care about it. And it's not going to take up space for any fall crops or winter crops because it'll still be growing then. So right now we're planting summer stuff and we're planting our long season fall stuff. So that's anything that you weren't growing over the summer, but not stuff that can take a frost or a freeze. Okay. So everybody, Penelope asked, can you plant okra seeds in a bed that already had okra growing? I mean, I'll plant them in the same bed, but not right next to each other. The whole idea of doing successive plantings of okra is to confuse the nematodes, which are microscopic worms that are in the soil. The good news is they don't move side to side very well. So I'd say if there's at least a 2 to 3 foot gap in between where you have one line of okra that you've been growing since the spring and where you're going to put okra in now that's going to grow until fall. If you can possibly have a 2 to 3 foot gap in between them, I think you're going to be just fine. Everybody's saying they're planting by the back of the seed packets. Guys, this is something you got to understand, okay? If you look at a map of all of the planting zones, okay? Think like a big corporation. Think like somebody who's trying to scale something up. Okay, and you're looking at this entire country that you're going to market. Okay? And I want you to look at how much of the country is taken up by zone 7, 7A, 7B, 6A, 5. Okay? And then look at how much of the country, like what population is 9B, us here in Central Florida. Okay? We got another little strip, tiny little tip of 9B, I believe in Texas, and then some in California. That's it. Okay? So don't expect these national companies to give a rat's hoot about whether or not you're getting the proper information. They just, why would they care about us down here in our tiny little strip of 9B in Florida protruding way down here? I mean, heck, if you go a little further south into 10A and 10B, you got more information on that because, dang, that's in the tropics now, and they can just, grow like all kinds of crazy fruit trees and stuff that we can't grow here. So perennials do a lot better. Tropical perennials do a lot better when you go a little bit further south. So, the other thing in 9B here, we're kind of the jack of all trades, the master of none. So what do I mean by that? If you go just a little bit further south, Bradenton and a little further south, they never freeze, ever. Okay? And if you go a little bit further north, like Brooksville and north, they always freeze. Okay? So here we are in Central Florida, 9B, where we don't always have good cold winters. And we don't always not have cold winters. So, don't get me wrong, it's a little bit tricky. And honestly, that's why I try and tell people to learn this heat-loving greens and things list. Because, let me take my glasses off here for a minute, because we're going to get serious. If I had to bet, back when I was a working man, if I had to bet a paycheck, or let me ask you this, if y'all have a job, would you bet your salary, just one month salary, on what the weather's going to be like in October? Would you be willing to make that bet? I'm assuming the answer is no. Would you be willing to make the bet on what the weather's going to be like in December? Probably not. How about January? Maybe January, February. How about March? Maybe that's a little better. How about April? No way. How about May? Nope. How about next September or September? Nope. Now, how much would you make a bet on what the weather's going to be like next June, July, and August? I bet all y'all would make that bet if you've been here a couple of years. So it's the only season, summer season is the only season we have super consistent weather. And it's the only season that Florida gardeners fight. They either try to grow stuff from the spring and trick the season and get that stuff going a little bit longer, or they don't garden altogether. They just give up. If you can find some crops off the heat-loving greens and things list that loves this weather, you are going to do so much better in gardening because it's the only season that we have consistent weather. I want to see anybody argue with me on that one. Nope. Yep. So I'm sure all y'all agree with that. I don't think there'd be unless you're new to Florida. All right, cool. So I'm sweating out here, and I am going to go ahead and open up this to some questions. I'm going to look back and see if there's any questions I missed. And then I'm going to go get into the air conditioner. I'm just dripping out here. So while I look through these back questions, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in right now and I'll get to them. And then I'll wrap it up and you guys can have a great night. Okay. The melon question, already answered that. The map on the back of the seed packet's accurate. Yep, no. I have grow bags that I pulled spent plants out of. What do I need to do to amend the soil? Or can I just sow seeds directly? That's from Sarah. Sarah, as far as growing in pots, typically I will reuse the same soil for about, depends on what crops I've been growing. So let's say I've been growing tomatoes, peppers and eggplants, which are very intense, heavy feeders. And and very needy plants, I might switch that soil completely out every year. If I've been growing herbs and lettuce and kale, which aren't as needy, I might have that same soil for every 2 years. If I've been switching between the two, I might have the same soil for about every year and a half. Every planting season, I am adding new soil to what's there. So topping it off, mixing it up, and adding new soil amendments. And then once I dump the soil, back when I did a lot more container gardening, once I dump the soil out, I put it in my compost bins where I then mix it with oak leaves and kitchen scraps and stuff like that. So eventually I'm reusing that potting soil again anyway. It goes right back in. So I think I did the math, and if you had, say, a big potting soil operation, not making potting soil, but like a big garden with all pots, and you wanted to eventually stop buying potting soil, you would need about 3 times as much potting soil than what your containers actually hold. So basically you got all your containers filled with potting soil, that's one, and then you have all the potting soil that you just dumped out that you're going to be adding compost to, you know, kitchen scraps, oak leaves, stuff like that. That's 2. And then you've got the stuff that you've already added scraps to, and you're just letting it finish off. So that's 3. So you've got what's in your pots, you've got what you just dumped out, and then you've got what you've been adding to that's going to be kind of your next round curing. That's 3. So you need about 3 times as much potting soil. And then you won't have to buy it anymore. And in fact, if you're putting composting in that potting soil, eventually you'll be able to like way back off on your soil amendments as well. All right. Penelope says, should we pull out the old collard greens that are still growing but sad looking, or will they come back and taste good when the weather turns cooler? They absolutely will. That's one of the few plants that in my experience, they don't have that many like soil disease problems. So a lot of plants have a lot of disease problems, and if you keep them in and baby them through the summer and then let them grow again in the fall, they end up just being a lot more sick and not producing as well. I mean, like collards are gangbusters. They'll just keep going. For those of y'all who are late eating my lettuce, Jericho romaine, it's being grown right behind me here in Tampa in our nursery. And it's not even a little bit bitter. Stephanie asks, where does Chinese kale fall? Chinese kale or Chinese broccoli falls right in with broccoli and kale, which would be a heat-tolerant winter vegetable. So those can be started sometime between September and October. If you're feeling really adventurous, and this is how you'll figure this out. So when you're growing your heat-tolerant winter stuff, whichever ones make it the longest into spring, those are the ones that you can start the earliest. So like collard greens will go almost through the summer. So even my heat-tolerant winter greens, I do staggered plantings of. So I'll plant all my collards like in August. And then the end of August is kale. And then September, I start planting broccoli. I'm just going down these questions here. Florida Farm Finder, how you doing? That's for if you screw this up, you know me so well. That's right. Patty Rice, I have good soil from you for my container garden. However, for starts, is there a preference for soil for starts? Yeah, so if you go on the website, we sell our Pro Mix, which is the mix that we start seeds in. We mix the Pro Mix completely by itself, and we use it as a germination mix, or rather we don't mix the Pro Mix, we just use it completely by itself. And then we actually combine that with our compost, perlite, and fertilizers to make our different levels of potting soil for when we're actually potting up out of the plug trays into our 4-packs or into our 4-inch pots. So the Pro Mix and our garden soil is actually the base products, which makes our potting soil when we go into bigger pots. But when we're in small seed trays, we're just using the Pro Mix. Bye, Pickles. Thank you for joining us. And Penelope, I think I already repeated that. A victim to planting by the back of the seed pack. You know, listen, the back of the seed packs aren't bad. I mean, if you're dealing with something you've never dealt with before, it should at least get you into the parking lot of the ballpark. Okay? So if you don't know if something like is going to be freeze tolerant or should be like planted in the middle of the summer, or is this going to really like it cold, look at the germination temperature, look at the time of year it's telling you to plant it, look at the rest of the area, and then give it a lot of wiggle room. And then talk to other gardeners. Because variety is very important. We talked about that in the succession planting. Like you might have, like I've got these cucumbers right here. Germination temperature on these, I believe, is 75 to 90 degrees or 80 to 90 degrees. So I can't even germinate these in the fall. And they don't like it. As soon as it starts getting cool and pleasant. So I'm doing my last planting of the Soyo Nishikis and the Summer Dance right now. And then when we're planting our short season fall stuff is when I start planting the Marketmore cucumbers and the Armenian cucumbers. So that's 4 kinds of cucumbers that I will have growing simultaneously so that I can have cucumbers between now and whenever it gets too cold if we get a freeze. So that's 4 kinds of cucumbers are going to carry me through the summer, into fall, and into early winter. And yes, Stephanie, nematodes are horizontally challenged. And believe it or not, y'all, I think, let's see, Danielle Hayes says yes. I'm wondering, were you going to take that bet on what the weather's going to be like? Because Patty said no, Stephanie said no, Patricia said no. Danielle Hayes said yes. So I think she would take that bet. She's going to bet us all her next paycheck on what the weather's going to be like in December. And then Danielle Hayes says, I have so many of these heat-loving greens and things growing strong. I know. I mean, like I tell people, if you can just get a handful of stuff you really look forward to over the summertime, you'll stop fighting it. James says, I'm struggling to find tropical perennials that my family likes to eat. I live in a suburban HOA area on 0.25 acres. I have to plant with a purpose. Please share tasty plants that would work in my garden. Our weather is very unpredictable. I'm a Florida native. We are having hot, dry days, and the winter was surprisingly cold and dry. And winter, man, winter can be all over the place. I mean, like, I think November's got fairly consistent weather. Into January, beginning of February has pretty consistent weather. And other than that, the only other time of year that has consistent weather is into June to beginning of September. I guarantee I know exactly what the weather's going to be like next year from the end of June to the beginning of September. Everything else is a crapshoot. So, yeah, figure out what off of the heat-loving greens and things list y'all can eat. It's a big list. There's a big list. I mean, if you don't like Malabar spinach, you can, I'm sure, eat watermelons. Where'd the watermelon go? I can tell y'all came late. So, James, you mean to tell me that your kids aren't going to eat that? That's what'd you say, tropical perennials? No, man, we're talking about annuals here. Well, tropical perennials, that's like mangoes, bananas, Barbados cherries, starfruit. Those are all your fruit trees. All right, so next. Why are the leaves of my green pepper plant I have in a pot curling? This plant has produced a lot of peppers. I transplanted to a larger pot thinking it was root bound, but the leaves are still curled and pepper production is stopped. Am I overwatering or underwatering? Peppers hate being overwatered. And right now, this time of year, with when we get all that rain. All the peppers I have in ground right now in garden beds are doing terrible with all the rain that we got. In fact, these last couple of days when we just went through this little dry spell, excuse me, they're starting to perk up and looking a lot better. And I'm actually cutting branches off the plants, giving them a little bit of liquid fertilizer and letting them flush back out. Patricia says, I'm growing the new Corota carrots. They're doing great. Can I plant the seeds again in early fall? You can pretty much plant new Corota carrots year round. The only problem with them is I think they don't germinate in temperatures over 78 degrees. So right now you might need to germinate them in a container. And as soon as they pop up, like inside, and as soon as they pop up, transplant them out into your garden. If you wait too long, they won't get a good taproot and they won't be big. Jasmine says, might be a silly question, but is it okay to use in-ground soil in containers pots? I accidentally brought the wrong soil. So when they say something is a potting soil, potting mix, garden soil, garden bed soil, raised bed garden soil, those are different. It's like how heavy is the soil? Like right now, I can't take my garden soil and put it in. I'll just use and put it in these little containers. Okay, so the soil that we sell for raised beds cannot go in these containers. But the container behind me that has this tree in it is a 30-gallon container. Look how sad this is. This is my strawberry cherry. It's my Jamaican cherry, you guys. This is like how hot it is. Like, how long has it been since we didn't get rain? What, 3 days? I got to get water on this thing. Poor tree. Anyway, this 30-gallon pot back here has got nothing but our raised bed garden soil mix in it. A pot this size, I would probably mix it 50-50 with my Pro Mix, which is mostly peat moss and perlite, and my garden soil and organic fertilizers. So it depends on how big the container is and how heavy the soil is, honestly. And I can't really gauge, because I bought potting soil before that's just crappy potting soil. It's too, even though it's even marked potting soil, it's too heavy. So I would say if it says garden soil on it and you got smaller pots, you need to get different soil or mix it at different ratios with some peat moss or something. Sarah Flores says, how do you keep mealybugs off your basil organically? Well, first of all, I'm constantly harvesting my basil. Usually I see stuff like that growing on the larger and older tips. So keep your plant trimmed. Having the right kind of basil during the right time of year is definitely important. Can't wait till the next comment. Okay. But some people will use like isopropyl alcohol in a Q-tip and just touch it on them. I'll hand pick them off the plant. I do have a product right now that I'm developing that's going to be plant oil based. And I just have a few more steps to go through before I can bring it to market. But it's going to be very effective against mealybugs. If you buy something from me and remind me, like in an email or something, that you want to give my experimental organic pesticide a try, let me know and I'll send you a sample with what you order. Stuff's great. It smells like, well, it's got cedar and garlic oil in it, and all the good stuff. It's basically something you could make in your bathtub. It's just the concentrations are regulated, so it makes it a lot easier to know exactly how much to mix with water so you don't burn your plants, and it's effective. Stephanie says, do the summer dance cukes grow all year, or are they best in the heat? And that's just like the Soya Nishikis. They start getting pretty miserable once the weather gets really cold. Like Stephanie, as soon as you get your boots out, they're not happy anymore. As soon as you get that scarf out and you put it on, the reason why I'm saying that is because the ladies in Tampa get their boots out and their scarves on, like, even it's just a little bit cold. Like when it's not cold, it's not like they need the scarf or the boots. It's that it's finally cold enough for them to wear the scarf or the boots. That's kind of when we're hitting that temperature plateau that your summer stuff is not going to be happy anymore. So if you are putting on your Uggs for the first time and you walk outside and your summer dance plants aren't looking so hot, you'll know what's going on. And taking the boots off won't help. And then Danielle says, no, I did not say that. She was just excited to hear us talk about the heat tolerant crops. So we don't get your paycheck? Darn it. All right, James says, I just planted Malabar spinach. I also planted watermelon, but am ready to plant again. And then Patty says, with the heat-loving greens, how does the amount of rain that we get affect the garden? Does it not oversaturate? I mean, on some of the stuff that's starting to yellow, I just bump up the amount I'm using the Compost Plus on the plants. So on some of the stuff, the heavier feeders, the nutrients can get washed out of the root zone, and you can just bump up your liquid nutrients a little bit. We don't want a bunch of nutrients washing in the waterway. And if you have your raised bed built properly with enough organic matter and you're using organic fertilizers, you're not getting runoff. It's just washing the nutrient below the root zone. It's just washing it right out of the root zone. It's still there when the plant grows a little bit more or the rain stop. That nutrients is still there for the plant to get, which is why I don't add more granular fertilizer to the top. That's just why I feed the plant a little bit of extra liquid nutrient so it can eat like right now. And then Michelle James says scarves and boots at 70. I think it's like mid 60s is the tip. Patty says we want to look cute. You want to look cute. You're killing our plants. Patricia says, should I expect the perennial basil to die back? It depends on how cold the weather gets. If we're getting freezing weather and you don't have a protected location for your African blue basil, I really recommend taking cuttings off the plant, at least putting them in a jar of water inside, just in case you lose the whole plant to like really cold weather. The sun has now moved again. I'm going to go ahead and say good night to you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you can't join, if you're watching this pre-recorded or and you can't join me and you have a gardening question or a topic you want me to cover, please send it to info@whitwamorganics.com. Next week, I have an exciting guest on with me, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Don't die out there in the heat, and I will see you guys next week.